Dear content creator, how are you doing? Like, seriously, how are you really doing? We often push through, chase the next post, but today I want you to slow down, sit with this question, and really ask yourself, how am I actually feeling? How do you balance the demands of content creation with prioritizing your well-being? In case you didn't know, September is Suicide Awareness Month, and I thought it would be a good time to have a conversation, a much needed conversation around a topic that isn't often spoken about in our world: mental health. So let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dear Content Creator. I am your host, Kariz Maggie. I am so happy to have you here again. Y'all, I think I'm getting a bit more comfortable with doing the podcasting thing. I won't lie, my first episode, it felt a bit rusty, but I think I'll be good. I have a bit more structure in terms of what I want to talk about for this particular topic. And with it being so nuanced and also super sensitive, I just want to give a disclaimer that whatever I'm speaking about is not going to be a one size fits all. I really want this to be a conversation, to bring this conversation to the forefront, because in our world, it's all about chasing the algorithm, chasing the likes, the shares, the brand deals, all of that. All of that is what is centered around what we do. And our mental health tends to suffer for all of it at the end of the day. And it's like, was it worth it? I am not an expert in this topic, I will admit that. And so I want to be very mindful of some of the topics I talk about. And also, I would love to hear you guys' feedback about the topic as well. The thing about mental health is that I feel like sometimes it's just a topic that's like people think is just a trend, and it's like mental health is something that we should take very seriously, because the stigma around mental health that people have, and why oftentimes people are surprised when someone they might know end up succumbing to, the topic that we're talking about, is because the signs are not always the same. And so I think it's important for us to just have a space to talk about it genuinely and learn through the experience. And I'm hoping that through this episode that I'll be able to learn something from you all as well, because it is, it's a much needed conversation to have, y'all. So I want to kick things off, I would say. Well, first off, before I kick things off with that, I don't know if anyone is a tea drinker, so I just want to talk about my little beverage of choice for today. I'm having chamomile. It's late in the night while I'm recording this episode, and so I have a little tea on the side. So if you hear me sip once in a while, it's because I'm drinking my tea. And I encourage you to have your beverage with you, your blanket, your snack, like curdle up, get comfortable, y'all, for us to dive into this conversation. So I'm just going to take a quick sip, okay? Forgive me. Now, I want to kick things off by talking about some of the common struggles that content creators face, especially these are things that tend to affect our mental health the most, and that is burnout, staying relevant in the social media world or content creation world, also the impacts of social media, and last but not least, imposter syndrome and comparison. So let's start off by talking about burnout. Now, I want to start this off by actually sharing a story of mine when I first recognized that I was experiencing burnout and that I had to make a very tough decision between content and my mental health, my sanity at the end of the day. So as I mentioned in my first episode, I started creating content while I was in university. I was living in Newfoundland at the time. And when I decided to move to Toronto, I came here to figure out my life, because I decided I wasn't going down the path of becoming a doctor anymore. And so that came with its own challenges in terms of, okay, well, what does that look like? As an immigrant, there are certain processes we have to go through to get like or permanent resident. And then from there, it's like before that, you get a work permit. And then from there, you're trying to make the necessary steps to get your permanent residence. And then for some people, they can later on go on to citizenship. So there's a lot of steps in between. So I remember when I moved here, it was very tough. Now, even though I did move to Newfoundland and Labrador by myself, I did have friends that I knew from school who were actually coming with me. Some of them I was on the plane with when I came. So it wasn't that I was like completely alone. I already went there knowing people. Making friends was pretty, simple to do. And the biggest challenge was just like the school life itself. So when I moved to Toronto by myself, I'm now an adult. I gotta work and pay my own bills and all these different things. And I'm solely responsible for myself, like seriously responsible for myself. The only person I knew at the time was my husband. Well, my now husband. And I remembered, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I remembered I had these thoughts in my head of all the great things I'm going to do when I move to Toronto and things I was going to do with content overall. And boy, oh boy, did reality hit me. I experienced the worst burnout ever. Let me tell you. I started this new job thinking I would be able to do the same thing I did when I was in university and was working part-time, thinking, well, I'm not in school anymore. I'm going to be working full-time. I must have time to make content, right? Right? Wrong. What I did not anticipate was the adjustment period was going to be much more than I expected it to be. And so it would have required more of my attention than I expected. So when I actually took my very first break from making content, it was something I was forced into because it took a toll on my mental health, trying to balance figuring out work. My job was also very mentally taxing. I was working in the social services field, and every day you're working with people who are in need, listening to issues, trying to find resources to help. So I will admit, like, what my routine was pretty much like is I would go to work, come home super late. I only had energy to eat, take a bath, and go to my bed. And then we repeat it all over again. In between that, I would try to fit in like going to events because I'm trying to network, right? I'm trying to meet people, see what other opportunities are out there, all that stuff. So it eventually took a toll on me. And I had to make a decision. Can I do content creation and work my full-time job, my very demanding 9-to-5 job at the same time? And the conclusion I came to was at this time, no, I would not be able to do that. So the thing with burnout is that it's something that sneaks upon you. You don't really know it's there, but when it lingers and creeps upon you, it is like it hits you like a ton of bricks. That's exactly how I felt. I was always tired. My excitement, I remember sometimes I would take up my camera and I would just put it right back. I just did not have the energy, the mental capacity to do anything regarding content creation. I was done. And what really did it for me was I had a mental breakdown. Maybe I'll go into another episode at another time about what this was like, maybe some of the signs I recognized, but all I can tell you is that it started off with me feeling extremely tired, followed by lack of interest, and then eventually I crashed in burnout. So actually took an involuntary break from making content for about 8 months. And that affected me drastically. I'll talk about that in my next point, but it was a scary time. But at the end of the day, I was glad that I took that break because it gave me the rest I needed to catch up with life. I was not a full-time creator. I was also working. So for me, I had to recognize that, hey, content creation is something you do in addition to your full-time work. What is the thing that is actually bringing you money to make you pay your bills? That was my 9-to-5, y'all, not content creation. I still had so much to learn about content creation and I wasn't making any money from it at the time, if I'm being honest with you. $0 and 0 cents. I'll actually tell y'all when I started making money, but we'll leave that for another episode. So yes, so let's talk about the solutions then. what were some of the things I did? Well, it started off by me setting boundaries. I had to set those boundaries. So it started off with me recognizing, like, you know what? I might have to take a break from making content, and that's completely fine. But also setting boundaries included, there are certain things I would have to say no to. So yes, I moved to the city. I'm getting to know this new place. I had to learn to say no to certain activities and going out and certain, anything that felt like I was pushing myself beyond my boundaries. So I remembered I used to try and go to 3 events a week. Yes, I don't know what I was thinking, y'all. I literally was killing myself in that way. And I decided that, yeah, I'm just going to do like once a week, if that, or look for really intentional events that make sense for me to go to. Because as much as I would like to meet people, if I am not there, like mentally, like just in a mind space to even interact with people, I'm wasting my time. So that was the first thing. I set clear boundaries with myself. I also remembered one thing that was making me burn out was that I was sometimes staying later after work. Not very helpful, right? Because I wanted to like help people. So I would stay late, answering the phone, replying to voicemails that people left to give them the information they needed, like just doing the most, y'all. So I had to set boundaries right there too. The next thing, I had to prioritize self-care. Now, everyone thinks of self-care as, everyone, their definition of what self-care is different. For me, it's doing things that allow me to relax and not feel like I'm working. That's how I define self-care. You can tell me though, what do you think of self-care to be? And for me, that was watching TV and not feeling guilty about it. So yeah, there was a period of time where I would just watch TV, put my foot up from work and just enjoy watching something that brought me joy, and that would be completely fine. I didn't have to think about the hustle of content creation and feeling guilty that, well, I could have been using this time to make videos. Well, Maggie, mentally you weren't there. So yeah, just watch the freaking movie. And the last thing, I had to seek support, y'all. And this is something that I encourage everyone to do, like having a good support system, whether that's family, friends, maybe other creators who just get it. It is super important to seek out support. And for me, my support was my family. As far as they were, it was part of my self-care, calling them almost every day for a quick video chat. And we talk about my day, we talk about their day. I get some encouraging words before I go to bed. My parents always like to pray with me and stuff like that. So yeah, seeking support looks different for everybody. And I actually recently, before I started this podcast, I had a WhatsApp group that was called Dear Content Creator, kind of to build a community for myself, if you will, because there was a moment where during the pandemic, I got laid off. And that was another time where my mental health took a very big hit. And I really had to lean on community. However that looked was me speaking more to people who just got it. They understood. We could just talk, see how each other is doing, checking in, like, y'all, your strong friends, your quote unquote strong friends, they need the checking in too, So those were very important for me. I wish I could say that at the time I was able to do therapy, but I couldn't afford therapy to do it. Eventually, I was able to do therapy through work benefits and stuff like that. But at the time, when I initially needed the support, therapy wasn't really in the works. It wasn't an option for me simply because it cost. But yeah, that's. I want to know what y'all's experience with burnout has been, because I know for everyone it looks a different way. But what I would say is when you hear that voice telling you I need a break, listen to that voice. Listen to that voice. It knows what your body needs. It knows what your mind needs. And sometimes our mind just needs rest. We don't need to be thinking about content ideas and making the content and posting the content and all of that. Listen to that voice that's telling you, right now, I just can't. You're not lazy for taking a break. That's one of the things I want to also bring to the forefront when it comes on to burnout. People will portray to you what pushing out content looks like. No one's telling you if they have a team to help them with editing, to come up with the ideas. All recognize what your needs, your capacity is, and make your decisions accordingly. The next thing I'll go to, since I kind of like touched on this a little bit, but the pressure of staying relevant. Oh, so fun, right? All the trends out there, and we feel like we have to jump on every single one to stay relevant, y'all. It's like what they call it, a hamster wheel, is it? Yes. And you hear this small voice in your head saying like, what if I fall behind? What if I become irrelevant? What if no one watches my content anymore? And here's the thing, staying relevant, if it has to come at the cost of your mental health, is it really worth it though? Because are you trying to be around for a season or for seasons, like multiple, right? So one thing I always like say to people when they're afraid about taking a step back from making content is your favorite TV shows take breaks. They got seasons, eh? They don't have their series going throughout the year, the entire year. They literally give you, right now, you're lucky if you get a series that gives you 10 episodes. But remember the good old days when you used to get like 20 some episodes in a series? Oh, good old days, man. But yeah, we don't get that anymore like that. So it's like your favorite series is taking a break to recoup, to come up with the ideas, to execute the ideas. And if your favorite series that has a whole production team, a whole team behind it can do that, why do you, likely a one-person show, feel that you shouldn't take a break? Are we machines? No, we are not. And even though we have tools nowadays that they talk about that can help you, maximize making content and pushing out as much content as possible, guess what? The content got to come from somewhere in order to repurpose it and put it here, there, everywhere. Isn't that right? So, yeah. What are the solutions to that? The main thing I would say, focus on your unique voice. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to jump on trends. There's nothing is wrong with that. Especially if it doesn't align with whatever it is you have going on. Or I know for me, there are a lot of trends that were happening at the time when I started making content that I could have jumped on, but two problems. One, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into being known for one thing. And secondly, I knew within myself that was content I would not enjoy doing. And so why even start and give myself the opportunity to be known for something that I know a month, 2 months from now, I wouldn't have an interest doing anymore. You know what I mean? It's like give and take. Engage mindfully. So spending time to engage with your audience in meaningful ways. Sometimes you can spark or get inspiration from your audience of like what they actually want to see from you. Not all of your audience members cares to have you jump on trends. So yeah, and then embrace flexibility. Yeah. If you need to adjust your schedule, for instance, remember I told you back in university, I used to work full-time, go to school, or part-time, go to school, and then I made content. There was a time where I remember I was posting consistently every week on YouTube, At some point when I decided to go to other platforms, I realized, okay, here's my bandwidth. And this was at the time to where people were telling you like post every day, but even to this day, they're still telling you got to post every day, blah, blah, blah. No, go so. All right. You don't have to post every day. Just adjust your schedule accordingly and define what consistency looks like for you. Some people can do every day. I know I'm not a full-time content creator, so I don't even bother to push myself to post every day anymore, unless if it's content that I literally have batched for a specific series where the intention is for me to post every day, then cool. But if it's like just for the sake of posting, no thank you. Next, right? Next. What was the other point that I mentioned in the beginning? So we talked about burnout. We talked about the pressure of staying relevant. The next thing that has to do with staying relevant is the social media's impact on your mental health. Now, this wasn't a big one. And when I say social media's impact on your mental health, imagine as a content creator, you're putting out all this work, you're posting the content, and then the algorithm just not giving you any vibes. You're not getting the likes, the comments, the shares, or any of that you're looking for. And what I'm about to say, it's easier said than done, to be honest, but you cannot allow the algorithms and what they seem to be favoring, and if it happens to not be what you're doing, to impact your value. The biggest thing I had to learn through being a content creator was not to apply my value to the likes, shares, and followers that I have. It's very hard not to do, but it's essential not to do that. And that's why in the first episode, I mentioned that I have made peace with the fact that if tomorrow I can't be a content creator, I can make peace with that, because content creation isn't like, I'm not just a content creator. It's not my entire identity that if it's taken away from me, like my life is over. You know what I mean? And so it's important for you to make sure that even though there is some good feeling, that dopamine hit when you get that like, the comments are coming in, the engagement is there. Yes, you're on fire. Even though that feels good in the moment, you can't allow that your value is just simply based on that. And I know it's easier said than done. I'm not going to stop saying that because I've been there. I've heard this before too from people. And until I was there to say, I get it. I've learned that I need to use these platforms to my own benefit, to leverage what platform I have, what message I have to put out there to get me other opportunities. One day I'm going to share with y'all how I ended up getting a partnership with Meta to be the face of one of their ads on a page that at the time didn't even have 100 followers. That's for another day though. But just to tell you and just to show you that opportunities do not just come from all these vanity metrics. The platforms and their algorithm, while it feels good to you're getting viral or whatever the case might be, it feels good. However, if you're simply making yourself a slave to the algorithms and what they expect of you, it's going to be hard for you to maybe find ways to even adjust your content to figure out, okay, maybe this isn't working. Let me look and see what are some ways for me to tweak it and things like that. One thing I would say I'm grateful for in being a content creator in Canada, it's a love-hate relationship. You see, because in Canada, we don't get paid for anything except YouTube. YouTube is the only one that pays us for making content. Instagram don't pay us, TikTok don't pay us. And so I have very little incentive to have to be on their hamster wheel as a content creator. I simply use their platforms as a tool for me to, it has a purpose. It gives me a platform. It gives me a voice to bring my audience into other things that I'm doing, to help me get opportunities and all of these things. But it's not like I am solely dependent on getting views and likes and all of that to get paid, for example. That has its perks, of course, when we are talking about brand deals and all these different things. But even nowadays, there are certain things that some brands have been prioritizing. And that's a conversation for another day. The last point that I will talk about is imposter syndrome. We need a support group for the imposter syndrome society members, like all of us who are suffering from imposter syndrome. It's not even a joke, y'all. Like, there are so many of you who are probably listening to this that I know you have done amazing things, and still it feels like it's not enough. And I know this because I have been there. I am currently going through this. I'm literally preaching to myself right now. Imposter syndrome is a hell of a thing. And I really had to look at what are some of the things that have affected me downplaying my achievements. And yeah, that's the biggest thing for me. I've found that I sometimes will downplay some of my achievements. And I think it really stemmed from just throughout my childhood, I've always been put down. And I think the final straw for me was literally university. I could not wait to leave university. I was a minority in my classes. I remember at one point as I got like more and more into my years at university. So you go from like first year to fourth year because I did my full bachelor's. I remember there were classes I was in that I was the only Black person. Add that to the only Black woman. There were certain things that happened sometimes in those classrooms that I didn't realize at the time were microaggressions, but I felt them. And they added to already what I was told growing up by certain teachers. You won't be anything. You're not smart. Don't waste your time. Like whatever things that I remember I was fed by some teachers who didn't see any value in me. And when people don't see value in you, it's kind of hard sometimes to see value in yourself. And so even with me doing this podcast, y'all, it was so hard because I'm like, who the hell gonna want to listen to me? I felt like the only way for me to do a podcast like this is if there are people who, like, I feel like I had to have a certain amount of followers and also bringing in a certain amount of money. Because let's keep it a buck. Right now, most content creators, what we care about is, how can I make this money? Can you tell me how to make this money? Anything other than that, people probably don't want to hear it. But you know what? Regardless, I'm going to use a platform to share as much as I can through my experience and just observations, and hoping that it will just continue to open up more honest conversations. Because yes, we will get to talking about the brand deals and the making money and all of that. But before we can get to that, you need to have the foundations for surviving being a content creator. You know, it's not for everybody. There is a certain persistence and resilience that is needed to be a creator, because you will be failing 10 times before you see any sort of success. And then you're failing publicly in addition to that, y'all. So yeah, I would say imposter syndrome, this will definitely be an episode that we talk about in more detail at another time. But it has been something that I would say has affected my mental health, because adding that to comparing myself to other people, I found that what I had to do was for a time kind of like unplug from social media so that I would focus. So me being away from social media for a little bit of time allowed me to really focus on launching this podcast and what I wanted to do with it, as well as other things I'm working on in the background for, like, I have a social media agency business, for example, doing a whole rebrand for that. I have another podcast that's in the reworking all of that to bring it back to the purpose that I started it about. Like, I had to really detach myself from social media and seeing what everybody else got going on to focus on what Maggie wants to do. And sometimes that's what you're gonna have to do. You might have to watch a few stories from people less, because maybe seeing some of the stuff that they have going on makes you feel some type of way about yourself. And it could be feelings of jealousy. It could, whatever it is, if the feeling is not making you feel good about yourself, you may need to take a break from that, and that's completely fine. I believe in being able to be happy for others and still acknowledge that seeing everybody else seem to win and you're not winning, it's not the best feeling, right? Or if you feel like you're in a season of not winning, seeing everyone else around you winning can make you feel like, So I want us to be honest about that. There's nothing wrong with that. This is not a perfect life. This is not a perfect job that we do. We have our ups and downs and our challenges, and it's important to acknowledge these things that it brings out of us at the same time. So yeah, those are some of the things that I would say affect us. And I guess talking about taking breaks, how do you effectively do that? Honestly, this is not even something that I would say I have the best tips to give you, Anna, to give you on. What is going on with my speech? Simply because this is a decision you're just going to have to make for yourself. People can tell you to take a break, but until you're ready to take that break, that's when you will take the break. What I would say is, don't allow things to progress down a certain path that by the time you do take the break, it's so hard to come back from a break. I would know. So the minute you notice that you need that time away, without guilt, acknowledge it and do what you gotta do to take those breaks. And sometimes a break doesn't even have to be like you're totally off social media. It could just be, hey, I'm using the time to focus on YouTube because that's all the energy I have for content. And Instagram and TikTok has to take a back seat right now. That's completely fine. Like, you are the CEO of your life. You are the CEO of your content creation journey. You alone can make those decisions for yourself. You alone know what your schedule is in a day. You alone know the time that you have to do certain things. So don't allow me to tell you, or anybody else for that matter, to tell you when you should take a break. But I would hope that in listening to this episode, it has given you some clarity in prioritize your mental health. Recognize when you need to take a step back, and there's no guilt in that. Cool? Now, right now, I want to go into a segment that I am calling Things I Am Loving Right Now. And for this segment, it's really just a way for me to share with you some things that bring me joy and are helping me either professionally or in my self-development, whatever it is in that year. It's just things that I'm genuinely loving right now and I want to share with y'all. And I want you to share yours with me too. Like, let me know, guys, what are some of the things that you're loving right now? So for me, I am really loving walking tours. Like, all summer, I've been in my walking tour bag. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. It's been great. And there's just something about it, especially for the summer. Just taking a walk. You're outside, exercising, moving your body. I already work a remote job where I'm always around my computer. So this was like super essential for me. But then on top of that, I'm being able to explore the city that I live in. So I've been to 3 different walking tours just this summer. And I did some vlogs, like I capture vlog content from it. I just need to edit it and put it on my channel. But yeah, those are some of the things that I've been loving. And in addition to that, I have to big up journaling. I've gotten back into journaling and it's been so freeing. I have 3 different journals. I don't always use them because I don't always have them like right next to me, but I do use my phone notes a lot to like jot down thoughts that I'm having at the moment, the way something makes me feel, just so I can reflect on it later on and come up with, okay, how am I going to navigate this specific situation? So I have a journal for gratitude, I have a journal for goals, and I can't remember what the other one is, but I have 3 journals. And I'm trying to do a better job of actually using them. But this summer, I do remember like I've been getting back to doing that. That's something that I used to do a long time ago and then I kind of stopped. I don't remember why, but I'm back to it. And for all my journaling girlies, you know, if you know, you know. Okay? All right, y'all. To conclude this episode, I just want to say, your mental health comes first, always. And if you need help, there are resources out there. Whether it's talking to a therapist, joining online groups for creators who are going through similar situations, or even just talking to fellow creators, like really making those relationships with people where you can truly talk about how you're feeling in certain seasons. I find that helps a lot. I do want to wrap up this episode. Just to close off with a segment that I introduced last week, the Dear Future Me segment. I've been really loving this. And I've kept all of these like notes that I write to myself to put like in a little scrapbook, because I do want to look back on this and remember these like future letters, like letters that I said to my future self. You know what I mean? So, Dear Future Me. By the way, this is an activity that I want you, as you're listening to the episode, that you also do. Make it a regular activity that you do. Dear Future Me, it's been a journey, hasn't it? As a content creator, you've worn many hats. Creator, storyteller, entrepreneur, all the things, okay? But in this moment, I want to remind you of something that will always matter more than the algorithms and engagement and content itself. Your mental health. Right now, I'm choosing to prioritize not just your creativity, but your well-being. Because at the end of the day, the creativity you pour out for others begins with taking care of yourself first. And with that, y'all, I want to say thank you for joining me on having this important conversation. I hope I did okay, This is a very, very nuanced topic that there needs to be a space carved out to talking about. And I'm like from a Caribbean background, okay? So like talking about mental health to begin with and like actually taking it seriously is something that I really had to learn, because growing up, I lived in a society where it's like, oh, you're not depressed, you just need to pray. No, I'm depressed. Like, I actually need help, okay? So recognizing that and picking up proper practices to assist with our mental health is truly important. And I also want to say, as content creators, there are many things that are happening in your life behind the scenes that no one knows about sometimes, because we're so used to showing to the public that highlight reel. I want you to remember that as you have those moments, it is okay to not be okay. Those moments, hold on to those things that give you that support you need, whether it's in the form of family, friends, your therapist, your partner. Really surround yourself with those support systems, because those are going to be so needed to help pull you out of the dark places that you feel like you'll go into sometimes. I'm speaking from experience, and I know that some of you can probably relate. And so as we close off this episode, I just want to say that in the show notes, I'm going to put relevant resources for mental health, resources that hopefully will be useful. And I just want us to continue this conversation, keep it going, and make sure to prioritize your mental health, not just during Mental Health Awareness Month or Suicide Awareness Month, but every day. Thanks for listening, y'all, and I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to whatever platform you're listening to this. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn on your post notifications so you're always notified. If you're listening on a podcast platform, same thing. And leave me a review, y'all. Let me know what you're thinking about these episodes. All the feedback is welcome, because your girl, I want to really get better at this whole podcasting thing. This is out of my comfort zone. But anyways, y'all, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks again for listening.